Hi everyone! Today I have made a quick tutorial on 4 different ways you can use a square knot. This is one of the very first knots you will learn when starting in macrame, and it will probably be used in almost every design, whether it's something simple through to the larger, more complicated designs. Before I get started, don't forget to like and subscribe if you would like to see more tutorials and videos like this. Let's get started! With most macrame designs, you'll most likely be using square knots in one form or another. This is because they're the most common and the most varied, if you could say that. So first we have the basic square knot, in which you take the 2 outer chords, which are your working chords. You won't be using the center 2. So you'll have your working chord on the left, which is going to cross over to the right, and behind your second working chord. Now the second working chord is going to come behind the center 2 and through the loop that you created with the first working chord. Now we're going to repeat that step in the opposite direction. So the first chord here is going to go in front of the 2 center chords and behind your second working chord. Now the second working chord is going to go behind the 2 center chords and through the loop that you created with the first. And that is 1 square knot. Now we repeat that process. So you have your first chord going in front of the center 2, and your second chord is in front of the first. Now your second chord is going to go behind the center 2 and through the loop that you created. For the second half of the square knot, you're going to take the chord that's on your right. It's going to go in front of the middle 2 and behind your second chord. The second chord is going to go behind the middle 2 and through the loop. To make a spiral knot, you'll actually be using half of the square knot. So instead of doing the 2 full knots that make a single square knot, you'll just be using the first. Now, depending on which direction you want to go as to which chord you'll use first. So now we're going to be doing a spiral that turns to the right. So we'll be starting with the first chord on the left. It's going to go in front of the 2 middle chords and behind the second chord, just like a normal square knot. And it's going to come around behind the back and through the loop. Now, normally with a square knot, you would alternate and you would come back the opposite direction. Do that. We're going to keep going using the chord that's on the left, going in front of the center 2 and behind the chord that's on the right. Now that second chord is going to come through the loop. Now because of the way this knot is, it's going to start to twist. You just keep repeating that half of the square knot. And as it starts to come around, that's fine. Just keep grabbing the chord that's on the left and starting with that one. You can see how it's brought around. Now if you wanted to do it in the opposite direction, you simply start with the chord on the right instead. So that comes in front of the center 2, behind the chord that's on the left, and back through that loop. you have it. So here we have a variation of a square knot. So for display, we'll be doing a normal square knot. Now this variation, it will have loops from the square knot. So to do this, make a normal square knot, but you're going to be doing it with a little gap between the first knot and the one that you're starting. Now it's important to keep a little bit of tension, that way it doesn't slide up and change the lengths in between, because that's important. Now we're going to finish that square knot like normal. Pull it nice and tight. Now to get the loops, we just slide it up. Now you have these two little loops that are in between. So we start the square knot again, keeping a little bit of distance between, and then we finish the square knot again. Nice and tight, and then we slide it up. And you have these little loops here. Now to create larger loops, all you need to do is vary the length between the previous square knot and the square knot that you're about to do. So we create the square knot, giving a little bit more length. Okay, nice and tight. And then when we push it up, you can see that that's a little bit wider. And this can be done with alternating sizes to create a nice pattern when you're creating like planters or wall hangings, for example. When making pillows, wall hangings, and different kinds of stuff, bags as well, you'll be using alternating square knots. Now this is to create more of a wider display and to fill gaps as well. So what you want to do is you'll make a square knot in each of these four. And then instead of continuing the knots down those same four strands, we're going to alternate. So we're going to take two from this section and two from the next section. So for this second row, we're going to be combining two strands from each of these pieces that we used before. And then we continue to do a square knot, making sure that the middle strands are pulled evenly, because sometimes if you don't do it enough, then one is going to be a lot longer on this side and shorter on this side, and it's going to be uneven. Then we take the two from the center and two from the piece on the right. We make a square knot with them again. There we go. So these two outer pieces, they're not going to be used in this row. Now we go back to this thing in the first row here. Then we're going to take the next 4 from this same row that we started from the first one. And then the last 4 strands. And there you go. So in the first row here, you have 3 knots. In the second row, you only have 2. And then the third row, you have 3 again. Now there is different effects that you can do. So if you wanted to do 2 knots in a row instead of just the 1, you can do that and it'll have a different effect. And so when we're alternating in this next row, it'll look a little bit different than the first one. And there you go. So there you have it, 4 different ways to use a square knot that will have you on your way to creating amazing designs in no time. If you liked this video and want to see more, check out my channel and don't forget to like and subscribe.